Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking playable races in World of Warcraft Legion. Or rather, we're talking about playable races in whatever expansion is coming after World of Warcraft Legion, because you know if there's one thing Blizzard love, it's patterns. From their storytelling, hey, here's a good character, oh no, they've been corrupted by power trying to do the right things, now they're a bad character, we'll have to kill them, GG, to their recent release schedule, all the way down to the features that each new expansion will include. Basically, it comes down to this. Every single expansion, we get either a new class or a new playable race, without fail. So, in Burning Crusade, we got new playable races. In Wrath, it was a new class, Cataclysm was more playable races, Mists of Pandaria gave us a new class and race. So, you know, we'll just carry the race on over to Warlords, which otherwise had nothing at all. Kind of the story of the whole expansion, really. And Legion has given us a new class, which means that World of Warcraft 8.0 is absolutely 100% put your house on it certain to give us a new playable race. That's just science, and you can't argue with science. Which rather begs the question, what will the playable race be? A question that will be answered at the beginning of November, I'd imagine, which is when Blizzard are expected to reveal the new expansion to the world in front of an adoring home crowd at BlizzCon 2018. And after that reveal, all speculation is off the table for another couple of years until the new expansion is revealed at BlizzCon 2019. So let's enjoy this while we can. And join us as we ask, what will be the new playable race in World of Warcraft 8.0? Okay? Go, 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 go. And the question of the next playable race in WoW isn't a new question by any means. As WoW players, it's one of our favourite games to play, and so let me start by getting a few of the more commonly mentioned candidates out of the way and into the bin so we can look more closely at the proper ones I've come up with in this list. And as a starting point, I'm going to say as well that whatever new race there is, I think it will be just the one race, which, like Pandaren, can join either Horde or Alliance. I think the days of having two new races in an expansion is unfortunately past. So first up, Ogres. No. Too big, too stupid, and still burdened with the bitter aftertaste of Warlords of Draenor, where they were everywhere. Jinyu, no, they look really cool and were thoughtful, interesting characters back in Mists, but let's be honest, Jinyu being announced as the next playable race would be about as exciting as the Assassin's Creed extra long and slow director's cut. Vrykul, no, although it is an interesting one in that they were just recently playing a very important role in Legion, and their Norse aesthetic would be fun to play with in a seafaring expansion. But seriously, look at the size of them. If you can't get in through the door of the Goldshire Inn, then you cannot be a playable character, that is a fact. Arakoa? Nah, too feathery. Murlocks? Nah, they wouldn't. Would they? Nah, they wouldn't. Would they? No. After the hot mess of Warlords of Draenor, Blizzard knew that they needed a big fat hit with Legion, and they responded by heaping on fan favourites by the bucket load. Illidan, Demon Hunters, the motherfucking Ashbringer, and it worked. Legion has been a critical and by all accounts commercial success, surpassing WoD in just about every aspect. And it doesn't look like Ian is ready to put the brakes on the fan service train yet. It's widely expected that one of the central protagonists, or antagonists, in 8.0 will be none other than Jaina Proudmoore, involve the always yearned for South Seas Islands, and take in the fabled Kul Tiras as a leveling zone, which alone is likely to send long-time players into more ecstasy than you'd find in Shawn Ryder's hand luggage. But if you really want to give the crowd what they want, why not drop in the most requested playable race in the history of the game for good measure? Naga would be the cherry on top of a South Seas expansion, and is probably the only race that Blizzard could play that would rival Demon Hunters for pure crowd-pleasing potential. And we do love them. We've been battling against Naga forces at every level of the game since vanilla WoW, and the player base has been crying out for playable Naga characters of their very own for about as long. And if Blizzard were to ever make our fishy dreams come true, then an expansion which may very well focus on Queen Ashara and seafaring fun times would be the perfect opportunity. Add to that their explicit old god connections, and they seem an obvious choice for the next playable race. Of course, Naga are emphatically baddies in the Warcraft universe, but with the redemption of Illidan's Stormrage and the Illidari, some of them already are on our side in Legion. Your Horde and Alliance Demon Hunters have already fought side by side with them throughout the expansion. And what classes would Naga be able to play? Well, they used to be Night Elves and were masters of the arcane art, so Mage would be a must, as would Priest, especially now that the class has so many links to Void and Shadow magic. Naga could be Hunters, Warriors, their mastery of watery elements would seem to make them Shaman material, and if you really wanted to, like if you really wanted to, you could even make a case for Naga demon hunters, as Naga have at least served in the Illidari, unlike any other non-elf race. You do have to really want it though. There is one sadly obvious downside to Naga as a playable race though, and that's their incredibly restrictive model. To put it bluntly, they've got no feet and no legs, and you can understand why Blizzard might look at all the work it would take to redesign literally every armor piece in the game to fit a legless fish person and think, yeah, fuck that shit, no Naga for you. But think of all the money you would make, Blizz. I know you like money. I still think that Naga are among the most likely of all to be a new playable race in 8.0. So the thing is, I'm sick of green. The massive demon-centric action of the last 3 years has meant everything has been greener than an Nvidia showroom, and it looks awesome and everything, but honestly, isn't it about time we swapped it up a bit? Well, the good news is that the end of Legion is, well, the end of the Legion, essentially, so we can all finally get ready to enjoy a life after green, because 8.0 is coming, and, well, I hope you like purple. Yes, as well as seafaring and Jaina killing, 8.0 is also largely predicted to involve the old gods and their masters, the Void Lords. The Void Lords come from the Void. You'll have seen this already on Argus with Makari, which is almost entirely infested with void energy, and apparently where there's void, there's also going to be Ethereals. The Ethereals come from a planet that was completely consumed by the Void Lord Dimensius, the All-Devouring, a disaster which turned them into bodiless beings of pure energy, which is why they have to wrap themselves in cool-ass bandages to give themselves physical form. They use their new powers to eventually destroy Dimensius, which is Void Lord killing expertise we could definitely do with on our side in the battles to come, you'd have thought. So far in game, of course, we're more used to Ethereals being bankers and traders, because theirs was a civilization based on commerce above all else, but that doesn't mean there aren't members of their race with a bit more going on. The most obvious recent example being Locust Walker, Alleria Windrunner's tutor in the dark arts of void magic on Makari. And here's the thing, there are loads of Ethereals on Argus, and they all have brand spanking new models too, which suggests that whatever happens next expansion, these guys are going to play a prominent role. Why not enable them as playable characters at the same time? Most armor pieces would fit on them easily enough. They could play as mages, warlocks, rogues, maybe priests if you could find a decent explanation for the light side of their powers to go along with the void, warriors, and fuck, why not hunters too? In fact, the only problem I can really see with having Ethereals as a playable race, they have no face, which is just a bit strange really. I mean, it doesn't seem like much at first, but honestly, it really freaks me out. Otherwise, this would be another obvious and very popular choice for the new playable race. Since the Legion expansion is billed as the final battle against the Burning Legion, it's probably safe to assume that by the end of it, Sargeras' forces will be defeated once and for all as we get ready to move on to the next world-ending threat, which is great, but what about all the demons left behind? What are they going to do with themselves in retirement? Because, you know, they don't seem like the polo shirt and Saga Holidays type. Maybe some of them will fancy continuing their fight against the Void Lords and realise that with Sargeras gone, we are the next best thing to a Burning Legion they have. We have already seen at least one Nathrezim who has switched sides, Lothraxion of the Army of Light. Might there be more like him? How cool would it be to play as your very own light-infused Dreadlord? I mean, you probably have to make the model a bit smaller because, come on, that's just going to look silly on a mount, isn't it? Otherwise, it would be awesome. Being a paladin or a priest would make perfect sense. You could also be a warlock. When you summon demons, it's like you're calling your mates for backup rather than just random slaves. They make great warriors, and with a couple of tweaks to the starting zone text, they could easily become demon hunters now too. And their standard starting area could let you play as a regular demon doing evil demon-y things before the Army of the Light come along, hook you up to a Naru who brightens you up, just like Azira tried to do with Illidan, except, you know, you wouldn't kill her. Look, this wouldn't be a list of potential playable races if I didn't include my own personal favourite Warcraft race of all time, the Tuskar. And yes, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Taliesin, there are so many reasons why Tuskar shouldn't be a playable race. Firstly, they've been completely irrelevant to the story since Wrath of the Lich King. Adding them as a playable race now would be a token gesture at best, and yes, you're kind of right about that. Secondly, they have no actual real in-game lore, apart from one mention of their leader Tusklord Harakar in the RPG, which isn't even canon, and yes, this is completely true, fair dues. And Taliesin, there is no female Tuskar model, which is a major problem and also applies to Ethereals and Nathrezim, even though you didn't bother mentioning that in their sections. And furthermore, we've already got one big cuddly meme race with the Pandaren, and sub-numbers have never properly recovered from that expansion. Playable Tuskar would kill the game. And all of these are good points. But the thing is, I don't care. I've wanted playable Tuskar since the first moment I set eyes on one, and nothing has changed since. Think about it, this would be brilliant. They'd have an awesome starting area in Northrend, which everyone would love, because Northrend is basically the Warcraft equivalent of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Everyone loves it. They could play as warriors, hunters, shamans, monks, and yeah, druids, why not? And if the next expansion is going to be full of seafaring shenanigans, who better to have fighting at our side than a weirdly round humanoid walrus race? Silithus. No one is the answer. No one would be better. Fact. Well, okay, maybe Naga would be better. Or Jinyu. Look, just shut up and give me my Tuskar, okay? I've got a confession to make. I've just made a whole video making suggestions as to the new playable race in WoW next expansion, but I admit, I don't actually think there will be one. I think there's going to be something else. Maybe something even better. When I pitched this video to our patrons a while back and asked them what playable race they were hoping for in the future, they surprised me with their answers, because overwhelmingly, the thing that got them really excited wasn't the thought of a new race at all, but of sub-races. We all know that as far as character creation goes, World of Warcraft does not offer the most inspiring customization options. For Blizzard devs, a slider is something you queue for in the canteen at lunchtime. And in a world as lore-rich and varied as Azeroth, this has always felt like a bit of a waste. The idea of having more radically different options within your chosen race has always felt like a bit of a pipe dream. Until recently, when this conversation happened on the Vindicar between Lady Liadrin and Silgrin, a Nightborne elf. Now, it's a fascinating chat because Silgrin is asking Liadrin what it's like to be a member of a faction like the Horde. And by the end of the conversation, he seems pretty sold on the idea, to be honest. It certainly does appear here like Blizzard is setting things up for the Nightborne to sign up to one of the factions. And why not? The models are already in place. We've played as Nightfallen in the Court of Stars dungeon. Is it just possible that we might be about to see a Nightborne option in the character customization screen of Night Elves? And if we can do it for Night Elves, why not everyone? Blood Elves could have a High Elf option. Dwarves could finally play as a Dark Iron variant. Trolls could belong to the Zandalari or Raventusk tribes. Uncorrupted Orcs could come from the alternate Draenor to join their green-skinned brothers. The High Mountain Tauren could bring their suspicious horns to the fight. The Broken of Kroken could step up to the plate. We could have Night Elf, Worgen and Forsaken, Gill Goblins, Leper Gnomes, Bloodsail or Kul Tiran humans, and Pandaren could have, you know, whatever, it'd be great. Obviously, this would create a whole load of problems for the racial starting areas and their stories. The tribe you belong to as a level 1 troll is very explicitly not the Zandalari, for example. But if we're being totally honest, the starting experience is completely out of joint and makes no sense these days anyway. Would the introduction of sub-races also be the opportunity Blizz needs to fix that up? And if that sounds like too much work, well, if Legion's level scaling was introduced all over Azeroth, then a sub-race's starting experience could feasibly be at any point in the game timeline. For me, sub-races are the obvious next step in the evolution of World of Warcraft. It would give the game the added customization that it needs while still being able to stay within set parameters. Players wouldn't even need to start new characters to take advantage of them. All it would take is a trip to the barbers and boom, you're a Wildhammer, just like you always wanted. And it would definitely play its part in bringing players back to the game for World of Warcraft 8.0. Okay, fine, the first month of World of Warcraft 8.0. What do you guys think? Are we in for a new playable race next expansion? Might we be getting those sub-races? And what would you want to have the chance to play as? Let us know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make our channel possible, as well as giving us ideas for most of our vids too. If you didn't like the video, downvote the shit out of it. And remember, my name is Census. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evitel. Until next time, cheerio.